There's a anecdote, or I don't know if it's a legend, that's been quoted many times by many people today about Benjamin Franklin after the Constitutional Convention in 1787. As he's walking out of the convention, a person said to him, "Doctor, what have we got, a republic or a monarchy?" And he responded, "A republic if you can keep it." In other words, it's up to the people to decide and to constantly decide what we actually have here. Because there's no one, we look back in America to the founding fathers and what their vision was and what they had in mind for us and for the country, but they obviously have no control over what's going to be the destiny of this country year after year, century after century. And it's really up to what the people make of it that will determine what it's going to be. No one's going to come down from a pie and blow a whistle and say, "This is deviated too far from the original plan. You have to stop." So really, the country will always be what we make of it. And it rings true today. It's a message which is so compelling, whether or not he actually said it. It's a message of optimism, which says that things could be better. It's a message of responsibility, that we have to do something. We have to, not as out of an agitation, we have to just do something, but there's a calling to us, that it's the people, it's each individual person who has a responsibility to respond, and that will make an impact on what we have going forward. In some ways, it's non-empowering, I feel like, because we're each one 250 millionth of the pie, and what difference could one person make? At the same time, it's really a collection of individuals, and we all have that responsibility to respond in the way that we think about it, to think about what we're seeing and think about what's going on here. What could we do better to make this country better and closer to what we really love about it? Some say, when you read responses, some say this is a call for unity. We need to build unity at this moment. And in my opinion, it depends what you mean by unity. If you mean that we all have to recognize that we're all human beings and we have to respect each other's lives despite our differences of opinion, then I definitely agree that we need that kind of unity. But if you mean that we have to respond to non-civil debate by stopping to debate and stopping to disagree and realize that we're all kind of the same, then I don't really agree with that. I don't think that the response to non-civil debate should be no debate. The response to non-civil debate should be civil debate. The enemy, I believe, of peace is truth, coupled with passion. When a person has passion and they believe they have the truth, it's really hard to feel a sense of unity and a sense of peace with others who disagree. Because we're so passionate about what we believe in, we can't tolerate those who disagree. The question is, could we have both? Could we have peace and also truth? And maybe we can have passion for both. There's a very interesting statement of Chazal who say, Afilu ha'av ubeno v'rav v'talmido. Even if you have a parent and a child, or a teacher and a student, she'oskim b'shar echad, who are learning Torah in one place, nasim oivim zeh zeh, they become like enemies in their vigorous debating. It's an interesting example the Gemara gives, right? The people who are least likely to have any animosity, the most loving relationship where there's no friction, a parent with a child, a teacher with a student. Nevertheless, when they get heated about a debate in their study of Torah, they become like enemies. And they don't leave until they become Olavim, they rebuild their love between one another. Ein Zazim Misham. They don't leave that debate. They don't leave that study session. They don't let it carry over into their relationship outside of that debate. I think the thing that we have to unpack about this statement of Chazal is, what does it mean? What does this mean that they're enemies and then they're in love? How do they transition from one to the other? Is it that they get all heated up about a debate and then they say, well, we don't really care about that issue anyway? Or do they maintain their passion on the issue and somehow create a love with each other nevertheless? And I think that most people, or most times that we read this statement, it's a well-known statement of Chazal, we think, what are they enemies over? What are they passionately arguing over? So you think, they're arguing, they're learning a Gemara, is Yesh Shalom Midas, is Yesh or it's not Yesh? And, it doesn't really matter to anyone's life. Never, you never actually had this situation in your entire life, or you don't even know someone who ever had it. But you get interested and involved in the intellectual debate, and you become like an enemy. I want you to, for a moment, shift your mindset and think about the debate might be something very, very personal and deep. It could be a social issue of Judaism. It could be, what does the Torah say about equality? What does the Torah say about the roles of genders? What does the Torah say about slavery? What does the Torah say about free will? Think about issues that a person could feel really passionate about. And when I debate and I say, this is what God said, this is what the Torah said, and you have trouble with that, you push back and you argue, and there really could be a passion that we care not only for the sake of knowing what the Torah says, but because this is deeply personal. And therefore, the debate is passionate, and it is like enemies, like oivim zeh et zeh. And how do you go from there to become oavim? Do you reach consensus? Do you finally, one person gets convinced? Or could we find a way to recognize that there are different ways of looking at things? And apparently, God created the gray, and God created people with different mindsets who can have different ways of looking at the same thing. And we can argue for hour upon hour, and we're each going to see it the way we see it. And that's okay. That's part of human nature. And we can become Olavim Zeh et Zeh. We can regain our love and connection and relationship by saying, we have something in common. We're both human, and we both care, and we're both debating an issue. And I can't hold it against you because you see it differently, because we just see it differently. And let's just appreciate the opportunity that we each have to express our views. A lot of times we talk about debates and we talk about tolerance for the views of others. And I think we have to be very careful with this word tolerance, because tolerance isn't really enough. Tolerance means I can tolerate you. And then if you keep tolerating things that we really don't like, eventually you just can't tolerate it anymore. And the thing that I think is more powerful and more useful than tolerance is respect. I respect you as a human being. I respect you as a person who's thinking about an issue. And you are not just something I can tolerate, but I can respect. And sometimes I personally feel very strongly about an issue and think that people who disagree are really, really wrong. And then you eventually take yourself out of your own self and say, they think the same as me. And if we can do that and then just respect the humanity of each other, I think that we could go a long way in learning how to debate with each and to have civil debate and civil discourse, which is really what the United States of America is all about enabling different peoples to live together and to debate and to discuss with each other. I think that this is a lot of the root of what we're suffering from. It's very hard to debate civilly, to respect the views of others who you passionately disagree with. And I don't think the answer is to erase passion, but I think the answer is to channel that passion and let it influence our beliefs and our debates, and also our value of respecting the humanity of one another. It's this hard thing to do. It's a hard thing for a country to learn, but we pray that as a country and as a humanity, we will learn that and grow with one another. I'd like to say the tefillah for the welfare of the United States government. Hanotzein shual l'malachim v'shalom l'nesichim. Machuso machus kol olamim. Hapotzeis David avdo mecherev ra'ah. Hanotzein b'yam derech u'mayim azim nesiva. Hu yivarech v'yishmor v'yinsor v'yazor v'yiromein v'gadil v'yinatzei l'mala es hanasives mishneu v'eskol sarei ha'aretz azos. Melech Malchei HaMelachim b'rachamav yitain b'libam u'belev kol yoatzehem v'sareihem la'asos tova imanu v'imkol Yisrael. B'meihem v'yameinu tivasha Yudah v'Yisrael yishkon levetach uval etzion golel v'chein yiratzon v'nomar amen. And I'd like to close with a tefillah that just like I'd like to close with a tefillah that was written maybe almost 100 years ago by Rabbi David de Solapul, a Sephardic rabbi living in New York, whose words seem extremely appropriate for today. Avinu Shebashamayim, Azor ubarech es artzenu atzos habritz be'Amerika. Sim ahava ve'achva ben kol toshvei artzenu. Barech es kol manhigei hamedinos ha'elu. V'sein b'libam ruach chachma uvina l'kayem shalom ha'aretz v'cherusa. Loosely translated, Eternal God, bless the leaders of the United States of America. Help them give the insight, foresight, courage, and fortitude to make statements, formulate policies, and take action that will enable our people, all Americans, and all humanity to live in a world of blessing, safety, well-being, and peace. Thank you.